This educational intensive episode is brought to you by the Fitness Business Podcast. Coming up today, you'll learn about the sales makeover that creates cash flow for your fitness business. Presented by our expert guest, Steve Jensen. Hi everyone, a super warm welcome. I'm Chantal Broderick, your host for this educational intensive show. Now, if you think it's been a while between intensive episodes, you're very right. There has been a lot going on in the world since we last produced one of these shows. And as I record this, it's August 2020. Now, I know that some of you will be operating business as usual. Some of you will still be closed, but perhaps you're offering some online services. Or maybe you're not operating at all right now, but you want to set yourself up for success upon reopening. Well, whatever your situation is, you're going to find some great tips and advice in today's episode as we dive into the topic of membership sales. Specifically, our focus is the sales makeover that creates cash flow for your fitness business. So let's dive straight in and let me introduce you to our expert guest for today. Steve Jensen is the founder of Impact Training Corporation, the National Sales Academy, and my mentor coach. He's spent over 30 years working with fitness businesses and professionals and is highly regarded as a leader in sales, communication and behavior skills, and public speaking. In fact, people from all around the globe have doubled and tripled their sales income as a direct result of what they've learned from Steve. Plus, here's a little bit of trivia for you all. Steve was actually a guest on the Fitness Business Podcast way back in episode 7. That was in 2015 when we first got started. So it is absolutely fantastic to welcome Steve back onto the show in 2020. Now, some important information for you all. This episode is available in audio and video versions, plus as a free downloadable ebook. You can access all of them at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Now, I encourage you to take a watch of the video because there are a few sections during the interview where Steve does a screen share and he shows some diagrams that I know that you will find interesting. So my advice is this: take a listen to the audio in full, then jump over and watch the video, and then download the free ebook as well. So let's take a quick look at what you'll learn today. In parts 1 and 2, we chat about what the new sales process should look like and what skills salespeople will need to adapt to this process. In part 3, we take a look at business operations, how to complete a needs analysis, how to tour when social distancing, and how to price present when social distancing. Then in part 4, Steve shares 5 key actions to maximize sales. This is a bumper episode, so get comfy and listen in. It's now time for your educational intensive with our special guest, Steve Jensen. It is such a joy to welcome our special guest for today, Steve Jensen. Welcome. It is lovely to see you.
And you too, Chantal. It's great to see you, and thanks for inviting me on. It's been a while.
It has been a while between catch-ups. So, look, I really couldn't think of a better time for us to be catching up because obviously everyone across the globe has experienced a great deal of change during 2020 so far, and we're recording this towards the end of July. And we're going live with this interview in early August. So we thought that it was the perfect opportunity to have a chat to all of the listeners and all of the viewers out there about the processes within their fitness business. Because like anything, when a business or when the world goes through change, you really need to reassess the way that things are done. So today you're going to be talking to us about our sales process and giving it a little bit of a makeover. So do you want to just start off by setting the scene for us, first of all, Steve? Tell us a little bit about the landscape as it is currently and what we need to consider when we're making over our sales process.
Look, the makeover is what we've called it because it sounds easy. When we say make a lot of change, people go into absolute, meltdown. The whole process has been evolving over the years. For the last probably 2 or probably a bit longer years, we've been seeing a quite a significant change into digitization. And that's one of the reasons for the last 4.5 years I went back to school to learn it all, because unless you're moving with the times, you're going to be behind. And we found that people were really slow to move into something new. And what's happened now, and look, it's absolutely horrifying what's happening around the world, but on a positive note, it's allowed everybody to have a look at their sales processes and their systems of conversion. Now, the big challenge here is that most people like to stay in the same modalities, and they don't have change. And what I found, and with all the clubs we work with here and overseas as well, is that they always struggle to make the changes. And now we've been forced to make the changes. We've gone back into and seeing that there has been significant neglect and complacency in that sales process, because conversion is the key, and it's now turned into everyone saying they're wanting more leads. But if we do a good job in getting from the lead to contact to booked appointment or having a presentation now, if we focus on doing that, guess what? We're not going to have a problem. Now, people have been neglecting it for a long time. And now they're going back, wow, everything's got so more Spartan. What have we got to do? And it's actually, in some of our businesses, they've actually increased their closing percentages quite significantly by having both ways. And when I say both ways, Chantel, it's actually having the ability to do your presentation in the club or studio in a better way, but also having the ability to dovetail and be able to do it online. Now, for many years, we've been having buy online, click the button and so forth. But we all know that the amount of hits and clicks to that site to the close percentage is quite low. And we always said in the fitness industry, we've got to have some rapport and, get the person involved and all that sort of jazz. So you can still do that now, but that has changed too. So in the club, it's changed with social distancing and some restrictions, but also the state of play is it's not a good idea. We must evolve into a process of having both. And over here in Australia, I know you have a lot of people overseas listen to your podcasts. We went through the COVID, had the big lockdown, and then everyone came out, got complacent, went back to what they were normally doing, thought it was going to be okay. Well, let me tell you, now we're back into lockdown again. They're going into flux and saying, good grief. So I'm telling everybody, and please take this on board, I've been doing this a long time. You've got to evolve and learn how to do both well, not just one way. So that's the state of play where I feel everything's at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's such a great representation, and it's very sad to have seen that we have seen this second wave, and you're probably referring, to Victorian market here in Australia. And, every day that I listen to the news, obviously the States are still heavily affected. There are many countries throughout the world that are heavily affected. And so I think that view of the landscape is so accurate, Steve. And I guess there are going to be many fitness businesses out there that did embrace that online model. Everyone had to. So let's talk about now what the new process looks like. You essentially explained the need to have both a in-club and an online option. So do you want to paint that picture for us? What should club operators be thinking about now for the future, to plan for the future?
I did a presentation on our Sales Success Club a little while ago, and it was about, hey, I want you to think about what you're going to be doing in the next 6 months. And when we had the feedback, they weren't really thinking that far ahead. And for my opinion is, unless we actually have the ability to streamline our processes, because we have to have this one chance mentality, number one. Number two, we need to make sure that we have a shortened sales cycle, because people are going to do more things online. So when we actually had the conversation, people didn't know what they didn't know. So what I've done is I put together some things for you to see what you need to do to dovetail both. The first thing is you need to make sure that you have the right equipment. When I say the right equipment, I'm talking about getting a microphone that actually people can hear you. If you're going to do a presentation online, make sure that the computer or whatever you're going to use in a place which has lighting behind the computer. That's interesting. Also, make sure that your camera You have the camera at eye level. Now, these are things that we teach in our makeover program, and people are just saying, oh, and they're looking up their nose and they can't see them and they're black. They're like, and it's really uncomfortable for them, because what they then do is to start looking at themselves on the screen, and they've not done it before. We've done our FaceTime with mum and dad and the wife and the husband, but we've never done a presentation. So these things are taken for granted that we think everyone knows, but when it comes down to it, these types of skill sets have to be learnt. And you have to learn. Don't just watch a video and listen to this. You've got to actually get out there and actually do it. So there are some things I wrote down to make sure that you have your stuff right for online. Equipment is number one. You've got to have the tech, and also the technology. Once you've got the technology, the platforms you're going to use, you've then got to make sure that you understand how to use it fluently. Once you've got to understand that, you can still use your same sales processes. However, you're going to have to ask for permission to do things, because remember, if you're doing something online, all they can see is the head. And you start writing stuff down and you're starting to ignore them, it sometimes seems rude. So there's some protocols that need to stay in place. You can still use your needs analysis and all that sort of stuff, but you need to have those protocols in place so you understand. Next thing is you have to make sure you're very, very good at listening to the other person talk. What happens online is that person starts to become motor mouth, wants to get excited, and thinks that an auditory presentation works. Well, that doesn't work. You've got to make sure you go through your 8-step cycle. Now, once that's in place, you then have to practice it. Now, I'll give you an example. If someone rings up on the telephone and, they're in let's say, a little bit of, I want to find out about the club or the studio, you've got both opportunities. So you've got your product. You can have a virtual product, or they might have to come in, depending on what situation is in your business. They're on the telephone. So the skill on the telephone has to change a little bit. You've got to be able to talk to the person, engage with the person, because the telephone skill is the worst skill done in the whole of fitness industry. It's not trained, not inspected, and very rarely reviewed. Now, there is one thing on the telephone which I think must be taking place now. So when I get Bobby on the phone, I go through my normal needs process and find out a compelling argument. But instead of booking them in for an appointment, we've got a thing called a phone switch. We've said, hey, Bob, do you have internet? Bob's obviously going to say yes. It's a loaded question. Oh, do you have a computer? Or you're on a happy phone now? They go, yeah. Oh, look, are you near your computer now? And if they say yes, I said, well, why don't we hop onto a Zoom and I can show you everything straight away. Now, if they're in a position where they can, they'll probably say, oh, give me 5 minutes and we're all good to go. You say, what's the best email address to send you the Zoom link? You send them the Zoom link, and all of a sudden, you're online with this person. Now, remember, we all know that A1s and C1s are really important, like that's chat book today, appointment book today. But when we get this person onto a Zoom, you've not got to have a booked appointment, confirming appointment, and have a problem with a show rate. Now, remember, for the last 18 weeks or longer, we've been trained to go online. And people are now expecting it. Now, for all of you guys in the fitness industry, been in this industry for a very long time, when the consumer gets used to doing things, you've got to evolve. So we've got to get them on, because they've been doing Zooms with all their family in lockdown. Guess what? Let's give them what they want. And now you've got to be proficient at doing this switch. Now, if they don't want to do that, that's fine, and book them in to come and see you. Same old, same old. But if you can flick them into getting a presentation, reduces the time they get away. Could be a day, 2 days. And we all know every day that they don't show up, 25% less chance of showing or buying. So this is a small skill, but it's a big rock. And if we get them onto the Zoom, well, now we've got to now present. So this is a big deal when it comes down to saying, well, we can book them in for an appointment, but we can put them in the Zoom. Now, let's just put that aside for a moment, Chantel, and let's just say, let's go back to the club where someone just walks in. Now, many businesses live on the back of the walk-in, don't they? So what happens there is that we've got to have things ready for this different type of presentation. Okay, meet and greet. Well, we're not going to go out there and shake their hand anymore because that's we can't do that. But you've got to have a smile on your dial and make sure that you come out and you're not going to get inside that intimate zone anymore. But what you do want to do is to make sure that you work hard on your expression and your eye contact. We'll then sit them down, and then we're going to sit them down. Now you've got two choices. Now both are not great. One, you've only got to have social distancing, 1.5 meters. You got to, that's not even a rapport zone. Or you could have a perspex screen, which actually has a few holes in it, or a little thing that you have at a counter where you can sit next to each other, and it doesn't have to be too huge, but it's just around the head zone, which I would recommend is more effective. Now, as you go into building the rapport component, you can then go through your needs analysis and so forth. We'll come back to that later. But if you're going to do a presentation face-to-face, that's going to be easier than doing it over the phone. Now, what a lot of people are doing a mistake is trying to close someone on the phone. Oh, yes, I'll just talk to them and I'll talk them through. That's an auditory presentation that is thwarted with danger. There's no connection. You can't see them. You need to have at least two modalities to actually get someone to buy. So it's going to be visual, auditory, and then you're going to get them to write things down. So you've got to do a VAK. So if they're in the club, there's some things that change. Now, once we've got that out of the way, so that's the two different ways. We've got walk-ins, meet and greets change, having the things ready is going to change. Let's go back onto the online modality. Now, one of the big challenges, and I'm going to share my screen. For the people that are listening on audio, I'm going to be sharing my screen. I'm going to show a little trick of the trade. I'm just going to do my share screen thing, and it'll pop up, and you'll see my little head in the top right-hand corner. It's just like little dicky knees, just your little talking head in the corner. Now, that's okay, but it's really not connecting with human being, is it? So I'm going to flick on to my next screen. Now, this next screen says, selling is evolved. You've got to streamline the sales process. Now, that means that you're looking at the screen. Now, there's a process that I'm going to recommend you learn. It is called coming off screen. So now I'm going to click stop sharing screen, and now I'm back on to talking to you, the human being. So you're not just looking at the screen, now you're looking at me. Now, this is called on and off screen. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you here, I'm going to look over at the presenter, the customer now. You'll see that my eyes will not be looking at you. I'm now looking at Chantal and saying, hey, how you going? I'm looking at her, giving her lots of, let's say, being very polite, as mum and dad taught me, give eye contact. But now I look like I'm cross-eyed. So now I'm just going to watch and use a new skill called peripheral skills. Watch. I come back up to the eyes of Chantal. That's the eyes. That's the camera. So I'm looking at you. I can still see you moving in the corner, but guess what? This is called the on and off screen model. Now, when I go back onto the screen, it's very easy to keep eye contact and click the buttons, and off we go again. Now, that's a skill. It's not hard. But if we're going to connect with someone online, it's our body language, our tonality, and guess what? Eyeball to eyeball, because we don't have that proximity thing, don't we? It's a small skill, has to be learnt. Now, you can still do it belly to belly, all good. But guys, we've got to learn to do this stuff online. So when we go through these models, not difficult. We've got to have some changes belly to belly, and we've also got to make sure that we can do things online. Even when everything has changed, and hopefully things get better a lot sooner than later, but it might be a little while, we'll now have been trained to actually do those things online. And if you're not getting ready now, you're going to fall by the wayside.
Yeah. Now,
this is just a very simple protocol. So I've just talked about walk-ins, a few things have changed, and now just simple process of going online and having just the skill set to talk to the camera and going on and off screen. Now, I'll share some other things before we wrap up on how to do the presentation. But that's a big rock, because if you've got poor equipment, they can't see you, you've got poor lighting, it's not going to work. You're going to be judged. Your brand will be judged by that.
You know what, Steve, and I'm going to look straight down the barrel of the camera as I say this, as I look into your eyes. these are things, these are little tips that I think a lot of people will really appreciate the value, because I think probably over the last couple of months, we have all been on those calls where there has been those dim lit backgrounds, or, someone's talking over to the side of the screen or down here. And as you said, like talking to your head rather than to your eyes. And I have to admit, after doing podcasting for such a long time, and you mentioned really early on about how important it is to really develop our listening skills in these conversations when we're talking to someone in a video sense, when we're on the phone, and even obviously when we're in person, I really do believe that that listening skill that we have to develop is so important, because we need to be able to show to our prospect that we are fully engaged and understanding what their needs are. And I think this tip that you've just shared with us about making sure we're looking at them in the eyes, it immediately makes someone feel as though they're being listened to, they're being heard, and you create that connection. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm excited because we're only a little way in to this process, because pretty soon we're going to talk about some skills for our salespeople. But I know there was another section that you wanted to cover off before we move on. So I'm going to hand the microphone back to you.
That's okay. Well, funny you should say about the listening, because you're absolutely correct. Now, there are some things that some people do. I'm just going to segue from what you've talked about, because some people, when they talk, they go and they become quite serious, right? Now, when you're on Zoom, it's unforgiving. It is unforgiving. So if you've got a serious conversation, we'll have a serious look on your face. I've actually got a serious face for people on auditory now. But also, when you're talking to people and you want to be pleasant, you don't look like a happy clown, but make sure you've got a smile on your dial. A simple thing. And when you're there talking, don't do what a lot of people do is, yep, 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 yep. Shut up. Let them talk. Just nod your head. Make some noises, but don't. And then when you want to change, when you want to move, when you want to talk, just move on the camera. Just move on camera. And then you'll say, make a noise, and then move on camera. And all of a sudden, you'd make a little bit of a move on camera, then have your say. Now, as we go through this model, we now need to say, well, okay, now I've got someone belly to belly, or I've got someone online. You've got a needs analysis. The needs analysis, and you asked a very good question here. How do we do the needs analysis? Well, there are a couple of things you can change. Now, if it's online and the person still wants to come and see you, strongly recommend you have a very short needs analysis, like a precursor needs analysis, which you can send to Google Docs. They say, Bob, my boy, I'll pop in here. Look, you're going to pop down in half an hour and 2 hours. They want to come to the club. Send them a little Google Docs where they can just completely fill it in before they come in. Now, around 50% will fill it in because Google Docs is really easy to send. Out it goes. They fill out a few things before they turn up. Now, the other skill that we've actually been teaching people, whether you do this online or not, is pre-filling out their needs analysis. Gone are the days of just giving it to them to regurgitate what they've spoken about on the phone. So if you send a Google Docs, you can actually have half the stuff already filled in or completely filled in. Small document. But if they come in and you haven't got that, make sure you write down the person's name and tick a few boxes that have already been done and just ask them to complete the rest. Now, you can do it on an iPad if you like, or you can have it on a piece of paper. It's your call. But if you want to shorten the sales cycle, this is really important. But the Google Docs has worked really, really well, especially with the online process, because if you're going to do a Zoom online without them coming in, you can send them a little Google Doc so you can talk about it together. So let's go back online. When you're talking to somebody, and please take note, when you're looking into that camera, and then let's say Bobby starts to talk to me, and then I want to then take some notes. You say, Bobby, let me just take some notes. You ask permission for everything you do online because there's no peripherals. They can't see everything else. So when you go down to look at the piece of paper, or take some notes. Don't just start writing when the person's talking to you and start writing stuff down, because that looks rude. I know you're not being rude, but people come and say, well, what's he doing? Can't see what he's doing because it's off camera. Very simple thing. So let's say Chantel tells me this, and say, oh, hang on a tick, let me just write that down. And you might talk as you try and then come back to the screen, looking at the camera. You write down. That's how you can do your needs analysis. Now, in some cases, you can have your needs analysis on a PowerPoint. You say, oh, let's just pop onto the PowerPoint. Let's just ask you some questions so they can see it and answer the questions. Say, I'm just going to write it down for you. So if you haven't got a Google Docs that they can complete or another document they can type in, you can just pop the questions up there and you don't have to remember them. You can ask the questions. I'm just going to write down your answers, Bob. Now, either way works well. Belly to belly. Always get them to complete the needs analysis. Don't go back into the 70s and 80s where we do an interrogation. And please don't get lazy and think you'll remember all the questions, because it never works. So these are little things online and belly to belly that do make a big difference. Now, it sounds easy, doesn't it? When we do our Sales Makeover program, which we put together just before COVID, and it usually goes through 8 steps. People said, oh, that's easy. But when they went to do it, they were really clunky because the motor neuron, the neural pathway was not there. Easy to understand, more difficult to do. So guys, if you're wanting to do this stuff, take a few things of what I'm saying. And what I'd like you to do is to make sure that you practice them before you start just throwing them into action. So that's how things are
jump in and ask a question, Steve, just there. Sorry, in regards to that, because I think this is a really important part of the process. When you are recommending that people are practicing these skills and the change of the ways that they do things, what does that look like? Explain to us what you mean by practice. How many times are they going through this process? Are they doing it is a manager doing it with their team members? Just paint that picture for us quickly so we understand what type of time and energy investment should go into perfecting this sales makeover.
Okay. I'm glad you asked that early, because most people wait to the end to ask that question. We call it PDR. We don't like role play, do we? Oh, no, we run away from role play. Oh, my goodness. No, we do PDR. Practice, drill, rehearse. So it's a new name that we've put together where people love doing PDR, but they
really different.
I hate doing role play, but I love doing
Just
PDR.
Don't say role play. The words role play nearly came out of my mouth when I asked the question, and then I thought, no, I might scare people. I'll rephrase. We're on the same page.
So absolutely. But when you're teaching something, I know that many of the listeners out there would know this, but I'm just going to recap it just in case you forgot it. We can't learn all of the makeover, all 8 steps with all the bits that I'm talking about in one jump. It's impossible. You've got to take a little bit and practice it. It's called chunking. If you're going to go on screen, off screen, and then you've got to do it 6 times to get 62% retention. And that's just the words. That's actually an action. You've got to do it. You've got to hear it. You've got to see it. Now, some of you are more auditory, some of you are more visual, but you have to have 2. So in all training we do a bit, and then we do our PDR, and we do 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. So that gets 6 times, and then 1 more for good measure. And then we move to the next part. And then once we've done the chunks, you then do a thing called a full flow. Now, doing it that way, you create a neural pathway and to be able to remember to do it. But practice, find the things you're weak on, and what you need to do is not just role play one day. I'll do some role play today, or some practice, drill, rehearse today. It needs to be every day, just 1 or 2 micro skills. Micro role play or micro PDR is far more effective than a full telephone prompt or a complete tour or a whole needs analysis. That is boring, and it is not productive. You've picked the small things. It could be just the big how. It could just be asking for the money, and you go 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. Any little problems, fix it, nail it, every day for 5 days, the weakness, and guess what? The weakness disappears. So all this stuff I'm showing you, when you go through the training, the way we train it actually is in those chunks. You can then put it into practice because you've created the neural pathway. Just listening and understanding is not training.
Have to do. Well, thank you for taking on that little bonus question midway through today's training session, Steve. I really appreciate that. So we've talked a little bit about that needs analysis side of things. Let's move on to touring, because obviously this is a whole new world, because all of a sudden we are 1.5 meters away from our prospect at all times. So how do we approach the tour nowadays?
Well, let's just go back into the club. Okay, because as I said, a lot of clubs and studios live off the back of the walk-in. Now, when they come in, you go through your needs analysis, you've done all that stuff, you've got little perspex going on, you've found the compelling argument, hopefully you full W's and all that stuff that we've taught everybody, or you probably know. Hopefully reduce some objections, and there is some rapport. Now, remember, I'm just going to throw this out to you guys. This is a new process I spoke about earlier. Tours, trials, are, in my world, old school. They don't work anymore. You can say, oh, what are you talking about? No, we've trialed this. I don't do anything that doesn't work, because we have trials and we make sure that when we teach stuff, we say, well, if you use it, it will work. You can still do the tour, but you've got to add something to it. It's called proofing, proving what you said is true. So I can say, we're going to get bigger, stronger, faster, and I'm going to show you a piece of metal. Is that proving it? No. Just proves I have a piece of metal or equipment. It proves that I have a toilet, a shower. It proves I have a nice looking building that's clean. Now, the big rock here is, as you're doing your tour belly to belly nowadays, I recommend as you go through your tour, you're going to prove what you said is true. And in the COVID world we live in now, I'm going to suggest you give people a packet of sanitary wipes. As you walk across things and they touch something, you just say, I'll just get you to wipe that down. So you're proving that you are safe and it's a clean place. You also want to make sure they see people cleaning, so it's proving that you're always cleaning. And you always want to make sure that your disinfectant and your cleaning materials can be noticed with a strong but pleasant scent. You have the smell, you have the touch, you get them to do it. So as they go through and they sit on a piece of equipment, you wipe it down, and then they get up, they wipe it down. You teach them as though they're a member. You might say, well, that's a bit over the top. No. The Holy Grail now is actually wanting to be safe, and clean is a big rock. And in Australia, it's mandated, but some do it better than others. Feedback I've received with all the clubs that I work with is the ones that I've seen people doing it all the time are really feeling safe and getting more referrals, because they're saying, come, it's really safe here. How's that? So that's the belly-to-belly side. Now, the big rock here is like, well, we've done that for years. Okay, I can get a wipe. That's easy peasy. Now, we have a thing called Perphibi and all that sort of stuff, but that's not for today. Let's go back online. What do you got to do? So let's say I get that phone switch, or the person's going to have a chin wag with you on Zoom. Guys, one of the most important things is now you must have things preloaded. I'll say this again, preloaded. In other words, everything is ready on your computer, on your iPad, whatever you're using. It has to be preloaded. You don't want Mary coming on and you've got to go and find all the stuff. You have to have a PowerPoint ready that's going to give you some credibility. And in your explanation, your demonstration, your tour, if you have some videos, you show them some videos. But, there's a big rock here is some testimonials and some proof of what you said is true. So if you've had someone that wants to lose weight, have dates on photographs and say this is Mary, with permission, obviously, and then show what she looks like and over that period of 6 to 12 weeks if you have a weight loss challenge. You've got Bobby that wants to get bigger and stronger, or someone that had an injury repair. You've got to prepare those proof mechanisms to show them, whether you use Prezi or whether you use PowerPoint, it's irrelevant. But have it ready. So when you actually go through and do your needs analysis, you go on and off screen. So as I go onto screen, I'll show you my bits and pieces. I come off the screen and just have me talking. Then I will talk about what I've just shown you. get some feedback about those things. Very exciting, because guess what? They get excited and they see it. I mean, people buy holidays without going on the holiday. They don't say, I've got to have a holiday before I go on it. They buy it before they go on the holiday because they've seen some pretty pictures of Bali. Well, it's the same with the health club. We're only asking for what, 20, 30, 50, 70 bucks a week? So let's get out of that mindset that, oh, they've got to do it. No, they don't. I'll try before you buy. It's fine. If they're going to do a trial, you sign them up and quality guarantee them, and I'll show you how to close in a moment. But this thing online, this is a big rock that people don't do, Chantal. They actually don't do this well. They don't prepare it well. They don't have their presentation. And I do believe you need to have at least a 1 to 1.5 minute testimonial with someone talking, swinging your thunders. And it has some proof mechanisms, not just this is the room, this is our group exercise. Well, hang on a tick, you want me to do group exercise to lose weight? Well, who's group exercise to lose weight? That's called proofing. This is a big rock now. We've actually had significant increases in closing percentages by using it. Now you can do this so much easier online.
Thank you so much for both of those examples, Steve, because it's really a great time for us to think about how prepared we are with those online kind of those proofing mechanisms that you talked about. And I've got to say, from a personal experience, my gym that I attend every day, as soon as I walk in the door, and this is just to point to what you said earlier about grabbing or giving a prospect like a wipe as you're touring them around, as you're taking them around, as soon as I walk in the door of my gym, there is a table set up. There's about 40 spray bottles with disinfectant in it. There's always a reel of wipes sitting there. You cannot miss it. It's the first thing that you see. So the habit for all of the members now is just to walk in the door, grab a bottle, grab a towel, and off you go. And I don't know about others out there, but I have to say I am very conscious about cleaning, the area that I've been working out. And to your point, when you're touring someone around and they can see all of the existing members have their bottle, have their spray or are doing their wipes, then what great proof that is an important element or something important for your club is to keep everything clean and tidy. Nice reassurance for your new prospects. So thank you for showing us both sides there, the online side and also the in-person side. So let's move on to price presentations, because you did drop a little bit of a segue there. You mentioned that we're going to talk about the close, and this is such an important part, and I did get a little sneak peek of this earlier. So listen up, everyone, and watch, because Steve's also going to do a little screen share on this one. So over to you to talk about price presentation. How should we be doing that?
Okay. So much time is spent on teaching people the things that we think are really important. I'm just going to hold on to everyone's horses. If your needs analysis be done well and they know, like, and trust you, whether it's online or belly to belly, and you've now done proofing, tested the temperature a little bit, and had a conversation, don't sell them anything, just show how you're going to help and make change. Please write these words down. Use the word, not achieve your goals, achieve your results. This is old school. How do you want us to help you make some changes? See, changes actually is a doing modality. It actually has a doing. I want to have these changes. Okay, that could be a result, but that's a different way of speaking to people, and it creates a different feeling. Now, we spend a lot of time on the close and all that sort of stuff, but I just want to backtrack. If you've done a poor job in your qualification, you haven't done your proofing, let me just give you the heads up. You don't have permission to close. You have to have permission. And I call it the what's next process. So what's next? You don't move to what's next until you're ready. So let's just assume you are ready. So I'm just going to, for those of you that are just doing or the audio, I'm just going to share my screen again. So just go on that little screen share. So I'm in the top right-hand corner. And I'm just going to go through and just show you a couple of little things. For those of you that are on audio, I'm just showing a few things that tools you need. The computer. Some tripods, very inexpensive. I suggest you go on to Wish and buy them there. They're very inexpensive and come within a couple of weeks now because of coming from overseas. These are tools you require to make sure everything's on track. Now, once all these tools are in place, it's conversion that makes, and you've got to make it easy to buy. So I just want to show you a few things. And I'm going to explain it to the guys on audio. Now, a lot of you guys and girls will be doing the T-graph price presentation, triplicate of choice presentation, whether you draw it, whether it's on a piece of paper, and it's all on an iPad, that's fine. If you're going to use any type of screen, you're going to have to update your screen. So if they're going to be sitting down in the club, your screen's got to be a big screen. You can't have a tiny little laptop computer, a little 12-inch. It's got to be a big one. 15, 17, big screen. Go through and present it like that. Now, you can talk about it. That's fine. You can actually don't need to go on a computer. You can just have it on a tariff. I'm going to show you how to do a tariff close. Now, with price presentation, there are lots of things, but just going to show you on the screen. On the screen, it says rate at the top. It has two names on either side, has an arrow, and it has a line at the very bottom. If I recommend that one of the big rocks to make sure people buy now is make sure that you're not just selling a gym membership. Make sure you have secondary and tertiary spend in your virtual cabinet. So have virtual products that they will stay with. So if they can't come to the club, they can come and do a virtual modality. You can actually get a third-party virtual product. For instance, I know one of my very close friends has a product, which is a weight loss product, where he can actually give virtual assistance and virtual coaching, and you can just utilize his product or service for a small fee. So it's a virtual product. You don't even have to go to the club. Strongly recommend that you have a secondary or tertiary spend. What does that mean? That means that there's something they would buy as well as a membership. And sometimes that actually gives you a higher ROI, but we're not going to go into that too much now. If you do have a secondary spend, always present it first. So on your iPad, you'll go down to the bottom, you'll write it on the bottom. On the screen now is just an arrow going to the very bottom. You always write in or have it coming up on your screen or whatever that secondary spend is. And then you present your normal prices. Now, there's a process that I'm sure you know of. We've been teaching it for over 20 years. It's called sequencing. The reason most people do a poor job in doing their price presentation is because their sequence of presenting the words and the numbers are wrong. It becomes too wordy. We talk ourselves out of a close. You just become too noisy. All right? So the word sequencing is like, I just have to say these words. Now, with a tariff close, which you just actually can get it printed, put it on a laminate, you can have it on your screen. All you need to do is to read it from top to bottom. It has all the words on it. So you don't have to do stacks and stacks of training. You don't have to remember what to say. All you need to do is to read the words. So I'm just going to show it to you on the screen now. For those of you going to go on screen, you'll see what I mean, but I'll talk it through. You'll see on the left-hand side, it's just a little a picture of a lady on a treadmill with a trainer. At the very top, it says how to begin. So I'm just going to say, hey, Chantel, let me show you how to begin. What I'd like to know is I know you're going to be really focusing on going to the city to surf. What's up the top there? It says focus. Now, there are a couple of ways we'd like to do this, but I know you want to do the, whatever it is, the secondary spend. So we go right to the very bottom. We say, right, you want to have this fitness pack or this strength pack or whatever, and that's only $199, but it's actually on a bit of a special at the moment. You're going to get it for just $99, saving $100. That's pretty good, eh? So that's going to fast track your training, and we have your trainer organized, ready to go. Now, there are two ways we can move forward. Now written down, we just write it down. I always leave it blank on a tariff. Then we got left side. Okay, we got results. It says results. I'm just reading it. It says $99 to start. Then it has programming, food review, and assessment, and a shopping tour. How good's that? Okay. And then we go over the other side. Boom. And then it's going to be $0 to start, and then it's just $77 per week. Now, this would be for personal training because the rate is going to be your rate. So, for instance, we go from the top to secondary spend. The rate is whatever you're going to have as your half hour or 1 hour rate. So, just back onto the screen again. Let me show you to begin. This is called our full focus. Now you're going to have the little extra, whatever it may be, it's amount of money. Then you go to the rate. Now it's only half an hour. It's going to be X amount for half hour, a couple of ways to start. We have the results, read it. Alternatively, with a little arrow. And then and at the top, it says best value. You don't have to remember to say it. You just have to read it. Best value, nothing to start. And then you're going to say, my recommendation is we do lifestyle. So you then just read the tariff. It's a piece of cake. Now, tariff closing has been around in many years, but it hasn't been perfected. Let's say a health club, pretty much the same thing for two different ways. You could be a DD club, you could be a paid in full club. A lot of clubs only do direct debit, two choices of that. Or they might have a paid in full option and a DD. We've just got two pictures on the screen right now, exactly the same. Okay, let me show you how to begin. This is your plan. We have one way, it's called a Flexi. It's $99 to join. I'm just reading this, guys. Access 24/7. It's going to give you the gym, the classes, and your group PT and a programming. That's just X amount per week, minimum of 3 months. Now, alternatively, arrow goes to the right, which is definitely our best value, which I'm just reading it. It's our focus. There's nothing to join. You get all the same stuff. It's only a little bit less. Circle goes around best value. That'd be my recommendation. Let's get you back in the first grade. You excited? Boom. Nothing to learn. Just have to read with a bit of personality. And the same applies when you do it for a DD and paid in full. Now, whether you use a prescriptive close, and I strongly recommend you use prescriptive closing from an expert's point of view, if you're a personal trainer, prescriptive closing. From my point of view, from where you're sitting, this is what I would recommend. And then you say there's two ways to do it. I know the first way is not you, This would be I'd recommend. Let's get you started and move forward and get you back in the first grade. Never finish with let's get you started. That is irrelevant. Back in the first grade. How exciting will that be? Next thing is assumptive closing. A lot of people are very good at this. They say, that's what you're going to do. I'm the doctor. No questions about it. Or you could go into your choice close, which we've been doing for 100 years. And by the way, don't say, which option are you looking for? As soon as you say option, it's option out. You'll say, what type of person are you? A or B? Ask them what sort of person, so it becomes personalized. This is a simple thing in line or belly to belly. Now, what I've just shown you here is price presentation. Closing is next. And it's something that it takes only a very small period of time to do, but done poorly. Why? Because the competence is not there, because if you don't have the competence, you don't have the confidence. And then you go, it's uncomfortable asking for the money. Now, some of you will say, it's not me. But let me tell you, that is not the majority. So online, it's become much easier. And we call it a chat box close. And if you have all of your mechanisms to go online, websites where you can buy online, you have gateways, and most of you do, I know that. It is an absolute piece of cake. Now, the big rock here is when you present your product, you're going to say, that's what you're going to do. You're going to take them into the chat box. You'll already have your URL on a Word document, and you're going to copy the URL, and you're going to pop it into the chat box. Bob's now said on the tariff close, he's going to get that one. It's because that's from the expert's point of view. He's going to make okay, well, let's make sure we get you back in the first grade. Let's do it now. You pop it into the chat box. He then goes to the chat box. Say, click that, Chantel. Now, you're then going to ask Chantel to actually share her screen with you. Yes. She's going to pop up. You just say, pop your details in there. We'll then get you booked in for Thursday at 5 o'clock. Now, guys, I'm just going to be a little bit blunt here. Gone are the days I'm sending you a link. How many times have you sent someone a link and they've just done nothing? I'm going to send you a link. Now, that's a lot better than saying, I'll call you back and send me a homing pigeon or whatever the case may be. But sending you a link and hoping the hell that they send it back, that's out of your control. So now we're going back online. That's going to be interesting. Put it in the chat box, get them to share screen, get them to push the buttons. It's just like your belly to belly, and they're filling out the details or the DD. Now, I recommend that you use a gateway. The gateway goes straight into your account. Now, if you have a DD, obviously it's a lot longer process, but that's for another time. Now, just to wrap up, I'll just show you it on my screen. I'm just going to go share my screen again. Oh, here we go. My head's gone, and we're back to the close. Chat box closing, I call it. And it does take practice. PDR, not role play. Okay. Here it is. On the screen, it says, you've got to have a natural conclusion. Chantal, we're going to get you back in. You're going to city to surf. You're going to have no injuries. Let's move forward. It's really easy. All we have to do now is to click the link in the chat box, okay? That's the close. That's it. Click the link in the chat box, okay? Click the link in the chat box, okay? Okay, share your screen and you talk it through. Oh, because it's immediate, it's straight away. And all of a sudden you click the link, go to the pay page, click, take them through. I'm showing a few pictures now of what some of them look like. They're very ordinary in some cases, but doesn't matter as long as they put their details in. And all of a sudden, you can use Stripe, you can use PayPal, you can use PayChoice, eWay. There's lots of them. And I'm sure they've got connected to your CRM. But let me make sure that you get really comfortable with this. Updating your link from a link close to a chat box close will shorten your sales cycle and reduce your follow-up. That's why learning how to do this online is really critical. Now, the last slide I got up here, which I'm going to leave up here, that you're going to read it. You must practice 3 times a day, and you must go through the teaching process of 6 plus 3 plus 1. That's 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. Make sure 3 are done perfectly, and do 1 for good measure. As you can probably hear, there are some things that you're already doing, but there are some things that are different. And as Chantal asked earlier, we've got to practice it. That's one of the reasons we put that makeover together, and we've had people just jump in there, and the very last day that when we go through our training, it is just bundling all those skills together once we've chunked it, and then they're just role-playing and practice, drill, rehearsing all day. So by the time they're just chafing at the bit. Every business is different, I know. This is a podcast. I've just tried to share with you some of the intricacies and some of the things that you could possibly do just by listening to kick some goals and make sure that you make every post a winner. And let me tell you, if you evolve now, you pivot, or whatever you want to call it, we call it be innovative, and take action and practice, and be ahead of the game, because everyone will follow, you'll have a lot of success. So I wrote some stuff down. Do you want me to go through those, Chantal?
I do. Actually, you've taken the words right out of my mouth, because I was just about to say to you, we do have just a smidge of time left to go through those 5 takeaways, and I know that they're going to be gold, so I do not want to miss out on them. But before you do that, I just want to say thank you so much for the information that you've shared today, Steve, because as you said, some of these things perhaps people are already doing, perhaps they're processes they may have done in their business, but I have a feeling there's going to be a big recheck going on, and people really considering how they're doing things, having a look at the online, the in-person approach. And I particularly liked your tip on that chat box at the end, that closing the sale. It was a terrific tip. So thank you. So I will now hand over to you to finish off today's show with your top 5 takeaways, actions that people can do right away to help their sales process. So back to you, Steve.
My pleasure. Look, before I do the 5 tips, what I'm going to say is listen to the podcast again, because get that trusty pen out and write it down and put some action items that you might think you can put into place. Action is what actually creates opportunity. So here it is. I'll just read some of these things to you. So I'm going to get permission to read these things because I've prepared them for you. All right. The first thing is learn how to sell online, have a process, and making sure that you update your telephone skills to know how to do your phone switch. Because That'll shorten your sales cycle, and you can do all the things I've just spoken about. And I think that's the first thing to endeavor to do after you've got the equipment, and I'm going to assuming you've got that beforehand. All right, next thing is ensure that people can buy online with the URL and have all the mechanisms ready to rock and roll. In other words, have the URL, have the gateway, get comfortable in getting them to share their screen so you can talk them through. So it's a practice with your team, chat box closing. So have the URLs and ready to go. So you just put it in a Word document and make sure you can actually buy online. All right. Oh, by the way, if you're with your direct debit company, most of them are connected to a gateway. So just connect to the gateway. That's the way to go. All right. Number 3, update your skills and make sure that you start proofing. Not touring, not doing a show around. I was told the other day I show them around. They don't want to buy your club. They want you to help them. So you're not going to buy a membership either. They're going to buy a feeling you're going to create. So if you prove what you said is true, you can only move at the speed of trust. So that's the third thing, get your proofing sorted out. Now, number 4 is making sure that you get comfortable in having a tariff close with your sequencing. Having it top, bottom, and just follow it through and learn how to read it. Having a tertiary and secondary and tertiary spend, which is maybe a little bit more online, which doesn't have to have them come in. Weight loss program online, group PT online, personal training online, life coaching online. Have those things in there too. So that's number 4 is to make sure that tariff close is sequenced and you've got a secondary and tertiary spend. The last thing is after you've said, I want to do all that stuff, check your equipment. Check your applications are up to date. Because you will need to go online more and more. Make sure all of your applications are being upgraded. Make sure that you've got the right camera. Make sure that your lighting is right. Easy to do. We take a whole day to getting it done, but that's just a by the way, because some people say, yes, I can get all that stuff, and all of a sudden we get all those skills ready to go, and when we look like we're in a cupboard. So, and learn how to switch from belly to belly onto a Zoom, shorten that sales cycle, create the experience. Watch the magic happen.
Absolutely brilliant, Steve. And I have to say, for those of you that are watching the video right now, I don't know if you saw, but Steve, you very stealthily kind of did that switch in the last segment that we were talking about. And I did notice you, when you're doing price presentation, you were kind of moving in between, showing us the slides and then moving back to, the one-on-one. So it was very effective. So thank you for demoing that along the way as well. So look, I have a feeling that there are going to be a lot of people that are listening or watching right now that are thinking, this has been brilliant. How do we spend some more time with Steve? How do we actually continue this training that they've just gotten a bit of a taste of today? So you have mentioned a couple of times your Sales Makeover process, which we've been talking about today. How do people connect with you? How do they seek out training for their business and for their team?
Well, we've got a couple of ways. It's pretty easy. Look, we've got our impact training website, which is pretty straightforward. It's impact-training.net. But the easiest way to connect with me is just pop onto the website and get a sales growth plan. And if they actually would like me to go through, we do a growth plan and put an action plan in place for a whole hour. It's free. I'm more than happy to do that. Or they can join our free Facebook group. It's called the Sales Success Club. Sales Success Club. I go on there every Saturday morning at 8:30 in Sydney time, and also on Wednesday, and do a little bit of coaching and some other things as well. So there are a few places they can go. So it's impact-training.net. They could grab a sales growth plan. As I said, it's free. Or jump into the Facebook group and reach out, and we'll maybe have a phone call. Sales Success Club. There you go. I think you're on mute.
Always helps when I take myself off mute, especially for the closing of the interview. Steve, what I was saying is that it was such a pleasure to catch up with you today. We're really, really grateful for you spending this time with us and for sharing such valuable information with all of the FBP family. Thank you for joining us. It was great to see you.
That's absolutely my pleasure. All the best.
Another huge thank you to Steve, and a reminder that in addition to the podcast, you can also watch the video and download an ebook of today's intensive show. All you need to do is go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, click on the tab at the top of the page called Intensive, then scroll down and watch the video right there. Or you can press on the button that says access the ebook of this interview. It is super easy. Plus, make sure you check out the links and resources that Steve has shared with us. You can also find all of those on the show notes page. So thank you so much to Steve for your generosity. Now, don't forget, we have a huge library of educational intensive courses on the website. Things like sales, financial management, how to start your own YouTube channel, video essentials, how to start your online personal training business, onboarding a new employee, building a retention plan, and more. You can find all of those at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com under the intensive tabs. I would love to hear what you thought of our latest show, so please drop me an email at chantal@fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Until next time, what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.